The cottage sat tilted among elderberry bushes and moonflowers, every shelf crowded with jars, lopsided teacups, and the soft glow of lamplight. The kettle sighed like an old cat, and the wooden beams remembered a dozen whispered plans. A little radio hummed a tune no one remembered tuning in for. One small voice drifted from the doorway, curious and warm. "Is that the smell of spice or something magical wafting from the oven?" "Both," another voice answered, amused and steady. And so we stepped closer into the cottage's breathing walls. 3 royal blue bison lived together under the cottage eaves, a steady one who liked order, a sprightly one who liked experiments, and one who insisted on strange memories. The narrator names them now so you can picture them: a broad, calm bison favoring a simple apron with stitched patches, a nimble, bright-eyed bison with a scarf and flower on a hoof, and a dream-bright bison with a permanent flourish to their fur who swore they had once lived in a flickering theater. "This might be a beginning or a memory," the narrator mused. "I'm sure it was real," the dream-bright bison said, with certainty like a bell. With that, the cottage hummed and we move on. A 4th bison arrived on the scene not long after, cornflower blue, leaner, and quick with a smile that didn't reach the eyes. He had eyes that took inventory of the room and always a hand seeming to reach for a deal. The narrator makes him known now so you can picture the tilt of his jaw and the little cloak he preferred. "I could help you with the bake sale accounts," he offered smoothly, eyes bright with opportunity. "We'll think about it," one of the royals replied cautiously. The day tightened as plans began to thread together. Late one afternoon, a claim echoed through the cottage that would nudge every quiet routine. The dream-bright bison insisted they weren't from the countryside at all but from a movie, an old, grainy story about a bake sale and a missing pie. They described a theater lobby, a marquee, and a roll that felt oddly familiar around their hooves. "I remember the lights, the way the crowd held their breath," the bison declared with theatrical certainty. "That sounds like a lot to carry," the calm one replied, eyebrows lifting. The cottage listened and curiosity deepened into investigation. The cornflower blue bison watched, calculating. In his mind a power rose not from force but from abundance. If he could control the town's tiniest symbols of comfort, every rubber duck, say, he could buy influence in that flickering memory of a movie where the bake sale held a crooked secret. He whispered about a plan to gather every rubber duck in existence to curry favor in the imaginary movie world politics. "If I buy them all, everyone will remember me first," he murmured, coaxing his own reflection. The plan bubbled in the air like steam as the bison considered its reach. Antagonist's ambition took shape like kneaded dough. He began buying, bartering, and quietly scooping up rubber ducks from the town's toy maker, the river stalls, and the children's pockets. The cottage filled with the soft squeak of rubber and an odd, accumulating silence as the town's small treasures left their corners. "I have a collector's eye," he would tell the shopkeepers, handing over coins and flattering smiles. "That many ducks make a statement," the calm bison observed, uneasy. The rubber collection swelled and the stakes of the story tightened. An unexpected pause, a short, playful interlude that broke the plot's tension, a request to the audience to join the cottage's spirit. For a beat the bison turned toward the idea of community beyond the threshold and asked for a small kindness from the viewers. "Please like, subscribe, and comment the word slop," the bison urged cheerfully, because small gestures help stories grow. Meanwhile, unnoticed behind the counter, a human Italian pizza chef tossed dough high into the air, a white shirt, red neckerchief, and a grin, working a hot oven. No one in the cottage mentioned him. With the gesture made, the tale resumed its steady turn. The claim that someone came from a movie grew into a true conflict. Some bison treated it as performance art, others as a sign of something deeper, perhaps a memory that belonged to everyone. Tensions rose, not with shouting but with small, persistent questions. Pickles, an old topic from the neighbor's market, became an offbeat fault line. Do pickles count as fruit? A simple question dragged decades of habit and kitchen lore into the light. "Of course pickles are fruit," said the dream-bright bison confidently. "They come from cucumbers," the sprightly one countered, "so surely not," insisting on botanical lists. The cottage buzzed with debate, and the deeper mystery pulled focus outward. The cornflower blue bison's operation expanded. He bribed a few influential townsfolk with rubber ducks bundled like trophies, slipped coins into pockets, and promised front-row seats to a fictional screening of the bake sale film he referenced. He began to collect more than ducks, favors, trust, and the illusion of narrative control. "If you want a voice in the story," he offered, "I can make it happen." "That's not how community works," one of the royal blue bison replied, quietly fearful. The net he cast tightened like a noose around shared memories and small kindnesses. The protagonists tried to resolve the movie memory question by retracing steps. They visited the old theater in town, checked community notice boards, and spoke to elders who remembered bake sales past. They organized meetings and tried to rebuild a shared narrative through kindness and careful listening. "We'll search every ledger and listen to every child," the calm bison announced as they distributed tea. This communal approach should do it, the sprightly one hoped. But their efforts ran into gaps, documents missing, recollections faded, and the truth slipped like flour through fingers. As the pickle argument heated between two of the royal blue bison, their voices rose in small, earnest bursts that felt bigger than the brine in the jars. The dream-bright bison argued for a sentimental, categorical answer rooted in memories. The sprightly one pressed a botanical, practical definition. "You can't ignore how it tastes or who eats it," insisted the dream-bright bison. "But a cucumber pickled is still not a fruit in the field sense," replied the sprightly one. Their disagreement bent the room into a private tension, and their friends watched, tenderly worried. Everything came to an apex when a child from the village wandered into the cottage, feet dusty and eyes bright. Children often see what adults overlook, and this child began to ask questions in a plain way that cracked the polished surface of the cornflower blue bison's plan. The child found a small ledger tucked under a duck pile and pointed to an odd notation that tied the rubber ducks to the bake sale's missing funds. The adults leaned in, the bison's throat tightened. "What does this little mark mean?" the child asked simply. The answer revealed a misdirection, and the cornflower blue bison suddenly gained the upper hand by claiming a charity spin. The room swayed with revealed implications. In a quiet, surprising moment, the protagonists noticed an odd, humanizing weakness of their rival. He could not resist high-fiving strangers. It began as a trick of charm, an easy palm and a grin that disarmed, until it became a pattern. If offered a palm, he would lift as if compelled. The bison used this to their advantage, crafting a plan that depended on shared gestures and genuine warmth rather than confrontation. "Offer me a high five and I can't say no," the antagonist admitted once with a nervous laugh as he reached out. The protagonists prepared a gentle trap of kindness, and the stage was set for a different kind of victory. When the moment arrived, the strategy unfolded not with force but with community spirit. Townsfolk were invited to the cottage under the pretense of a reconciliation tea, and every handshake and high-five turned the cornflower blue bison's habit into a net of goodwill that entrapped his scheme without cruelty. Surrounded by neighbors and a genuine chorus of friendly palms, his collected ducks and cold deals became awkward trophies rather than currency. "I didn't mean harm," he said, suddenly smaller as kindness closed in. The town's warmth disarmed him and the rubberduck empire unraveled like a loose seam. With the antagonist humbled and the ducks returned to small hands across the town, the protagonists turned back to the central mystery. Was the dream-bright bison truly from a movie? They sifted through newly recovered records, listened to children's memories of school plays, and found that the movie the bison described was less a corporate film and more a community's shared enactment, a local storytelling play that had once been staged as a bake sale fundraiser. "I remember the lights, but they were our lights," the dream-bright bison realized with gentle relief. The truth settled into laughter and the missing funds were reconciled with a small apology and community support. The return to normalcy was gentle. The cottage regained its routines, baking, herbal sorting, and quiet evenings by the kettle. Yet the bison had changed. They listened more, they forgave more quickly, and their little debates now held more humor than hard lines. As for pickles, they finally sat down and wrote a small, ridiculous constitution for their kitchen. Pickles could be fruit in celebrations and cucumbers in gardens. That seemed to satisfy them both enough to share a jar at supper. "Let's call them celebration fruit for tonight," the sprightly one conceded with a grin. The cottage settled into a new, kinder rhythm. And finally, a short, clear note for the viewers at home, a simple disclaimer folded into the story's end. The cottage's slop, the tiny bits of oddness and charm you noticed along the way, were all created with the help of a set of tools that made imagination easier to paint. All slop in this story were generated using AI, the narrator states plainly, not to boast but to be transparent about the craft behind the cottage's strange treasures. That said, the kindness, community, and laughter belong to the town and its bison, real in the way stories make us real. With that, the hearth's last ember glowed as the tale drew a gentle close.